All right, hi everybody, welcome back. We are on the final two themes that we're going to cover with everybody today. And the first one is putting it all together. So the training week, we've given you lots of information on what you should include in your training, the different modalities of training, how frequent you should train, the intensity, the kind of content that you might place within your program through the week. So I think really what hopefully the guys here can help everybody think about and put in place is how you actually plan your week. Do you periodize it? Do you go hard early on? Do you recover towards the game? Does it differentiate between a Friday game, Saturday game, Sunday game? What kind of stuff do you do? Where do you plan your speed agility work? Where do you plan your high intensity running work and your lifting work? So we've touched on this through the themes with the actual components of fitness, but actually week to week, how does it work in a practical sense? Because it's all really great to talk about it, you know, theoretically and what's best practice, but in reality, you know, when you've got a full-time job, you've got a family, you've got other commitments, in the winter it gets dark, you know, by the time you get home. So really, how do you plan your week? How does it work effectively for you? The guys will hopefully give you some insight in best practice. And I think certainly things like planning would be key to think about with each session and each game. When you know what appointment you might have on a weekend, how do you plan your week and how do you make sure you tick your boxes with all the conditioning that you do? So guys, any thoughts? What's the kind of technique that you guys use week to week as far as your conditioning and preparing for the weekend and when you've got a match?
Yes, I mean, in terms of how I usually plan, it does revolve around work, obviously, and also when the games are during the week. So other factors to sort of come into play is travel as well. So a lot of us will be traveling long distances, so it's making sure that we're taking that into account and the effect that'll have on bodies. But in terms of my weekly program, I try and get my lifting and any sort of the harder work in at the start of the week. Any sort of high intensity running work at the start of the week and then tapering off to the end. As I said, depending on when the games are, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or if we're doing double headers, that will also come into effect as to how much work I'll do during the week, so I can come into the games and make sure I'm feeling fresh. In terms of the day-to-day element, it does revolve around what I've got on. So if I've got a meeting on at 8 o'clock in the morning, like I have done this morning, I'll have to try and probably go for a run at lunchtime or do something at lunchtime. Otherwise, I'll be up early, sort of 6 o'clock in my shipping container gym that I've got at home, trying to do anything on the bikes or rowers and get some work in before I go to work. So it gives you a good start to the day, number one, but then also means you don't have to worry about it at the end of the day when you come back home if it gets dark in the winter, but also when you're at the end of a long day, you can't be bothered to get yourself G'd up again to go and run or do some exercise at that point. I try and tend to be an early riser and then relax at the end of the day. So that's my sort of process. And then lads who have plenty of time on their hands, like Adam, who doesn't do any work but earns loads of money, will obviously have a different routine. So Adam, over to you.
Yeah, so I self-admittedly don't have a lot of structure in terms of what I do in terms of training. I'm quite reactive to how I feel in terms of what I think I need to get out of an average week. And that might come out of what's gone on the week before. If I've had, you know, quite a tough game physically, or I've probably done a little bit more in like my touch rugby sessions the week before, I might, in the following week, I might try and do a little bit less on my feet, so a little bit on the bike, or just, you know, try and get down to the pool, which has been a little bit of a problem recently. But look, in terms of my overall weekly planning, I always play touch rugby every week, so that's always in there, which is a nice sort of grounding point for me, because I know on a Monday and most Thursdays I'm going to be playing touch rugby, so that is almost a speed and heart rate session already ticked off, because, you know, I'm always going to be there. So those two are probably set in stone. I try and, if I'm going to lift, if I'm going to go and do a proper strength session, I'll try and do it on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, because I just don't want to feel, and we've mentioned it on other sessions, we've mentioned that you know, we don't want to go into games feeling really heavy-legged and a bit fatigued. So Tuesday, Wednesday, try and get a decent strength session in. Thursday, obviously, go back to a bit of touch if we can, and then on a Friday, I try and get out. If I've got let's say a Saturday 3 o'clock kickoff, I try and kind of get a bit of a routine in on a Friday that will mirror what I'm going to be doing on the Saturday a little bit. So if I've got a 3 o'clock kickoff, I'll try and get out about 1:30, where I'd usually be starting my warm up on a Friday, and just either have a brisk walk or at least get out on the bike just for half an hour, just to get the heart rate up a little bit. But I think that I think sometimes I'm not the sort of guy that if I put loads of pressure on myself to rigidly train at 7:30 on this day and 6 o'clock on that day, I just think it's not going to happen for me, because I have the way that my job works and the way that things crop up. I just can't be that structured. So I think that you got to give yourself a bit of a break in the sense that sometimes it's just not possible to rigidly stick to a plan. But if you just try and make sure you get out a certain amount of times in a week and you cover off, you know, you want to be covering off at least a strength session and getting your heart rate up a couple of times a week. If you can stick to that, then I think you stand yourself in good stead. Yeah, again, nutrition. I've always looked at these great plans and they go, oh, you know, this is what you should do and this is what you shouldn't do, and like there's certain things I'm willing to sacrifice for rugby, and there's quite a lot of things, but like food and diet, I'm not the strictest with it. But what I will say is that I quite enjoy healthy food, and I try and eat as well as I can during the week, which is pretty good. You know, healthy breakfast, healthy lunch, healthy dinner. But when it comes to weekend, post-game, you know, I'm the first person on the phone to Domino's, getting myself a big pizza in, all the works, or a curry, or
red wine,
so I think
red wine,
yeah, bottle of red wine, wash it all down. Yeah, you got to. Look, it's a balance. It's like with everything we've discussed with your training and stuff. You got to pay some attention to it, and there has to be. Obviously, it goes without saying that, you know, part of training effectively is having a healthy diet behind that. But you've also got to remember that if you're training a lot, then you need to eat a lot as well. So, you know, again, it's something that you've got to pay attention to from a perspective of, you don't want to undereat. And I think, you know, I certainly know a few match officials that have done that have been furiously training and not got the food on board and have flagged out. So yeah, I mean, again, there's a number of resources out there that will tell you, you know, what is good and bad to eat. But again, I think a lot of it is knowing your own body, giving yourself a bit of a break, because you are out there training and refereeing a lot. And I think with that, you earn a bit of a right to get a pizza on a Saturday night and those sorts of things. So yeah, it's all about balance for me. Not very strict with it, but I will really try and eat as healthy as I can during the week, and do what I like on the weekend. The last point I'd make is just going into a game day. So I'll try and get a fair few amount of carbs on board on a Friday night if I've got a Saturday game, just because I know what it's like, you know, to be running out of fuel during a game. And also, I don't know if anyone else relates to this, but sometimes if it's quite a big game coming up, I'm nervous on game day. I've got butterflies and my appetite goes. So I think it's really important to eat the night before, because on game day, I don't feel that hungry, and I feel like I have to force myself on game day. So yeah, the real day I focus on is the day before the game. Definitely have a really decent carby meal before in the evening, just so I've got a bit of fuel for the game day.
And I think the key thing about what we've spoken about, the last 10 topics that we discussed, actually reinforce exactly what Adam's mentioned there and what Hamish has mentioned there. It's not about a big panic, oh my goodness, I've got a game in 2 days, I need to train. It's actually the fact that preparation is key, and that if you can prepare effectively, tick all those boxes, then you can really cruise into game day and know that you've prepared physically. Also, what Adam said about using other sports to keep fit and conditioned. So, you know, it's especially for recreational and community-based rugby, I think if you can play touch, play tennis, play any other sports, football, soccer, basketball, they're all multi-directional, high-intensity sports much of the time when you play team sport. And that conditioning is going to really transfer into refereeing really nicely. And it's fun, it's great for the mind to have a different stimulus as well. So I think some really nice kind of touches on how Adam prepares and how Hamish prepares for that week.
In my plan, I have the sessions that I want to get done in the week, and I will try and, you know, have my strength days, my speed days, and that sort of Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Thursday morning, depending what's going on, so that I know I'm not overloading it just before game day. I'm like Adam, I play touch rugby, and that's on a Thursday night, and like you said, it's a fantastic session just to go and have some fun with your training and still be working really hard. And that's kind of my last big session before a game day. I think one of the things I learned back when I was working is identifying the time of day that works best for you to train. Some people love getting up at 4 in the morning and going to the gym when it opens at 5. Some people, much easier to do it when they come back afterwards. And I think it's that part of listening to your body, work out when's good for you. So I'm very flexible at the moment. If I put a session in on a Tuesday, sometimes I go out first thing in the morning, sometimes I go, no, you know, I've woken up, I'm still feeling stiff and all of this, I'll go out in the afternoon instead. So it's like everything we've said about listening to your body. But yeah, typically the heavier stuff in that middle of the week, and then tapering off towards game day like the guys do.
And I think the key point really from what you're saying, all of you, is planning your weeks, knowing that you put in the work, so that when we build up to that game day, that it's all taken care of. And I always use the kind of adage of looking in the mirror and knowing that you've prepared fully, and if there's any gaps, what could you do, what can you learn, what can you kind of add next time as a learning, and not feel bad about it, but use it as a learning to know that if there are gaps, then maybe reflect and say, right, actually I missed that session that week, what did I need to do, what could I do, how can I improve? And I think that's part of the journey that you've all been through to be at the level that you're at, to make it so that you now know that it's not just about, all right, I'll go to the gym because, you know, there's a day in the name of the week. Actually, I'm preparing and I'm loading heavy early on, and then I'm getting ready for the game, and I'm physically recovered, but I'm also physically prepared for game day.
It also changes though, depending on, you know, what your priority is. So I know for a fact that when we've got our fitness testing coming up, I know that I will probably prioritize, you know, cardio training over strength training, just only for a small block, but just and then the same with games. If I know I've got quite a few games, I might reduce my cardio training, because if I'm going to be doing 2, maybe even 3 games during the week, I don't need to then bust myself doing fitness, so I can actually prioritize a little bit of strength. So again, it's just foreseeing what your priority is at that moment. Or if you're working on an injury, you might focus mainly on strength, and then just reduce your cardio a little bit, just to allow yourself a bit more freedom to pick your workouts. I
think recognizing what works for you, creating that time, being committed to it, you know, make things happen. But also, you know, the non-panic situation, the preparation is really important, which is great.
There's certain things I'm willing to sacrifice for rugby, and there's quite a lot of things, but like food and diet, I'm not the strictest with it. But what I will say is that I quite enjoy healthy food, and I try and eat as well as I can during the week, which is pretty good. You know, healthy breakfast, healthy lunch, healthy dinner. But when it comes to weekend, post game, you know, I'm the first person on the phone to Domino's, getting myself a big pizza in, all the works, or a curry, or
red wine,
so I think
red wine,
yeah, bottle of red wine, wash it all down. Yeah, you got to. It's a balance. It's like with everything we've discussed with your training and stuff. You got to pay some attention to it, and there has to be. Obviously, it goes without saying that, you know, part of training effectively is having a healthy diet behind that. But you also got to remember that if you're training a lot, then you need to eat a lot as well. So, again, it's something that you've got to pay attention to from a perspective. You don't want to under eat. And I think, I certainly know a few match officials that have done that have been furiously training and not got the food on board and have flagged out. So, yeah, I mean, again, there's a number of resources out there that will tell you, what is good and bad to eat. But again, I think a lot of it is knowing your own body, giving yourself a bit of a break, because you are out there training and refereeing a lot. And I think with that, you earn a bit of a right to get a pizza on a Saturday night and those sorts of things. So yeah, it's all about balance for me. Not very strict with it, but I will really try and eat as healthy as I can during the week. And do what I like on the weekend. The last point I'd make is just going into a game day. So I'll try and get a fair few amount of carbs on board on a Friday night if I've got a Saturday game, just because I know what it's like, to be running out of fuel during a game. And also, I don't know if anyone else relates to this, but sometimes if it's quite a big game coming up, I'm nervous on game day. I've got butterflies and my appetite goes. So I think it's really important to eat the night before, because on game day, I don't feel that hungry, and I feel like I have to force myself on game day. So yeah, the real day I focus on is the day before the game. Definitely have a really decent carby meal before in the evening, just so I've got a bit of fuel for the game day.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm completely opposite to you, Adam, on game day, because game day is probably my worst day in terms of nutrition, in the fact that I will probably, because I'm driving a long journey, I'll have food, sweets in the car or whatever, and I'll just constantly be just grazing away on them. And then when you get to the ground, usually you've got a nice number 2 or number 4 who will bring packets of sweets, and I'll just be sitting. You'll find me when we're getting changed and getting ourselves ready for the game, I'll just be sitting just like sweets constantly, another handful. So my nutrition on game day is probably not the best, but it's just what you feel comfortable with. As I said, Adam doesn't feel like he likes to eat because he gets nervous before the games. I mean, it's just getting yourself into, it doesn't necessarily need to be a routine, but just whatever works for you to keep you in the right frame of mind to be able to perform at your best. And if that means you graze away and you eat as much as you can, then that's fine. The other thing that I sort of try and make sure that I'm doing throughout the week, it's not just on the lead up to the game, is make sure I get plenty of sleep. So I was watching The Social Dilemma, which it was quite an interesting one, just to how much all of these, or not just social media, but everything just wants your time and has the ability to just try and connect you back into phones, iPads, laptops, and then you've got work on top of that, and then you've got preparation for the game. I have set myself a routine on an evening now. Probably everyone think I'm old and boring, in that I've got a wind down on my clock from 8:30 till 9:30, where it reminds me that you're about to go to bed at 9:30, and you stop using your phone, because there's times when I'll find myself awake at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, just aimlessly scrolling through because I can't sleep. But then I just go, all right, my phone's on my bedside, pick my phone up, and then I'll just scroll for an hour and do whatever on whatever social media platform. So I've tried to sort of implement a bit of a routine where I turn off the phone or put it to do not disturb, so I don't get any notifications over the night, and just not pick it up. And even just having that extra level where it says, I think it comes up with sleep well, you'll not get any notifications until 6 a.m, which is when my alarm will go off to wake me up. And I look at it, I'll go, oh yeah, I've set myself the goal of not being on my phone, so I'll put it away and try and get myself back to sleep. And then in terms of sleep wise, it's just, making sure you get plenty, as much as you need, really. I mean, I'm usually function on 6 hours most nights, but I'll be up and down during the night or whatever, but trying to get those 8 hours and having that time away from everything that's trying to pick at your brain and attract your attention, I find quite useful to try and switch off from.
I think there's some great advice there, Hamish, because I think sleep hygiene, and you're absolutely right, because we're all surrounded by tech and kind of drawn into it for whatever reason, you know, curiosity, habits, whatever it is, then sleep hygiene is a really healthy thing to talk about. And I think you're absolutely right. Getting away from your phone or your device, that blue light that we see actually activates our mind and doesn't help us fall asleep. So we need to kind of turn that off, get it away from us. I, like you, have my phone next to me as my alarm, but I turn it the other way around now, so the light doesn't flash up when everyone's messaging me at whatever time. And I think keeping it on silent and you know, not looking at, being disciplined not to look at it, which is quite hard. And actually I sit on my bed and look at it before I go to sleep, which I shouldn't do either. And I know many people do that. But also the room temperature, not too hot in your room, dark room, no TV in your room, ideally. Obviously, if you've got a game and your mind's racing about the game, having some techniques to kind of refocus on falling to sleep. A lot of advice says get out of bed, go for a wee, or grab a drink and then go back to bed. Don't look at anything, don't read anything, don't expose yourself to the blue light from tech. And that will just recalibrate your body to think, right, now I need to sleep. So I know it's very difficult, especially if you're anxious the night before a big game. And it is a strategy that you might have to develop that works for each of you separately. But certainly sleep is a big thing that we need to think about and be good at, really. Hydration is the other thing. Simple thing to do is what we call the P test. So when you do a wee, just have a little look at your urine when you do your wee. If it's high volume, clear urine, happy days, nicely hydrated. If it's concentrated and not much of it, generally that would indicate that you're dehydrated. So it's a very simple self-managed test to do. And keeping bottles of water if you're traveling, if you're in the car, make sure you've got a stock of water and or snacks. If you get caught up in traffic or anything, you've got a resource there that you can keep hydrated, keep some top up of nutrition as well. And try and have healthy snacks in the car. So things like, you know, protein, maybe beef jerky and things like that. You know, nuts and dried fruits are more healthy perhaps than Haribo.
Woody loves the Snickers.
Oh.